guest that we haven't had on our show in quite some time. We've seen her in person, though, at certain events, but it's good to get to chat with her, get an update on all things trapping and legislative sessions and things going on in Montana. And that is the president and founder of Trap Free Montana. That is Casey York. Casey, it's good to see you. Happy New Year. And good to see, and just get to see what's going on. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Hi, John. Hi, Stephen.
There's been a lot going on. As we know, it's been a couple years since we've had you on the show, but as always, things in Montana seem to move at a rapid pace, and there's a lot of things that happen legislatively. But otherwise, how's everything going with you? How's Trap Free Montana doing? Any new updates you can share with anybody who hasn't heard from you in maybe a couple years?
Well, we've been busy. I've been getting some guest columns out. We continue to pay medical bills for trapping victims. We covered the rehab costs, not covered, but we donated towards the rehab costs of a bald eagle in the Bitterroot this year. Recently, a dog wound up in the ER. It's always very traumatic. Of course, always active in the commission meetings. We continue to monitor trapping and advise people where known trapping is occurring. It's pretty hard to tell, but when they know, we share that to warn the others. We watch the quotas and push the department to close areas when quotas are approaching. We've become very increasingly the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks watchdog, which is really rather tragic. I have a lot to do than to babysit. And then, we're involved in more litigation right now for relisting wolves in the gray wolf in the Northern Rocky region. We're suing on that, and I'm working on editing my declaration for the case. So I've only done we're kind of still new to litigation, even though we've been on several cases now. But this is only my second declaration, and it's interesting work. It's kind of different because I'm science-based and I'm told, talk about your feelings and how these facts make you feel. So, okay, here you go.
These trapping incidents, are they on par with years before? Are they going down? Are they going up?
It's hard to tell because trappers have to report like the trapping of dogs or, an eagle. And pet owners do not have to. The trapper didn't report the eagle. The eagle was discovered. 153 dogs made it onto the Montana FWP reports in the past 5 years that were trapped.
Wow.
Not all make it on the reports, and a lot of pet owners don't report it, and certainly a lot of trappers probably don't report it either. So those are just the ones we know about. And the likelihood it's going to increase with influx of people. We love our outdoors.
Yeah. I mean, talk about the litigation. We might as well get right into it because there's a lot going on. And I know you emailed us, and thanks for contacting us about what's been going on. And I know the main source of what you were talking about initially is that the new trapping maps and regulations and things were not up on the FWP website. That has since been rectified. But I guess before we jump into that specific thing, talk about when you say about writing litigation or getting involved in these things, from your perspective, what goes into that specifically? Because it seems like it's a lot of work to have your voice heard or to make a declaration. Talk about what that means so that people understand where you're coming from when you're in these meetings.
Well, like I said, I'm still pretty much a novice, and it's unfortunate that we've been forced. I've been at this a long time. Trap Free started in 2013. And before that, I was with another organization for about 4 years. So it's only in the most recent few years, like since 2021, really, when basically that was the crux of it. I mean, we had a case prior to that, but when the war was declared on wolves and all these ethics and so many things were cast aside, that led to a lot of different litigation, and much of it ties to grizzlies. Grizzlies being protected and the threat that these, aggressive wolf trapping regulations and these monstrous traps pose to grizzlies. So like our win in Idaho was because of the threat the wolf trapping poses to grizzlies. And a recent win I wasn't a part of, but I fed them information, was because of the threat to grizzlies from wolf trapping. What we're on now, I think the brief is due on the relist wolves litigation. I think the first brief is due towards the end of January. There's a lot of parties involved. There's 3 different groups. I'm on one. We're represented by Western Environmental Law Center, and there's probably 9 plaintiffs on that case. Total, if I was to guess, there's probably about 20 organizations litigating, and the judge has enjoined all of us, which makes sense, right? He's put us all together. So each law firm is representing a different thing. And as far as my involvement, I know trapping, and I know it pretty much better than most. So I feed the information, and I much rather them have more than they need. That's why my declaration is so long, and have them say, nah, that doesn't matter. No, we don't need that. Then for them to go, why didn't you tell us? We didn't know that. For example, something I learned and you brought up, what transpired in this last FWP at Fish and Wildlife Commission meeting and the changes in the wolf regs do not count in this litigation. And I didn't know that. So in other words, when we filed a petition to sue, I think it was from the filing date, nothing after that happened can the judge consider.
Okay.
Which is, new to me. So it's a learning curve.
So basically, you're filing declarations, and a lot of this, like you said, go into a little bit more about what this means, because we've been noticing a lot more when we interview people or talk to people in the field that more so now, I think, than ever. I mean, at least maybe before we started this podcast, wolves, grizzlies, and mountain lions are very much tied together in a lot of these listings, these propositions. It seems as they're this triangle effect that they sort of impact each other. So when you look at the scenario of Montana as it currently stands, because I know things shift pretty quickly, what are the areas in Montana where the ESA listed grizzly is impacting wolf trapping, and how are these regulations sort of differing at this point? And how is it shifting in a way that's negative or more egregious, if that's the case?
Well, in 2021, when the Montana legislative session declared war on the wolves, they became, I'm pretty sure, pretty quickly aware of what the law says for endangered species. And they define it as take. They refer to it as it's illegal to take, which means any action that harms, harasses, pursues, hunts, wounds, kills, traps, captures, collects, or attempts to do any of these is considered take. So they extended the wolf trapping season by a month. They started it through the 2021 legislative session. They said it's going to start the first Monday after Thanksgiving and run until March 15th. Well, grizzlies, before, the season used to be December 15th. I can't remember if it was December 15th or December 31st. Regardless, this gave them at least 2 weeks before, and it ended February 15th. They extended it another month, and those dates were designed to try to avoid grizzlies, right? So now they open this all up, and grizzlies, they're out there looking for all the food before they den, and they're looking for it when they come out. And so now you have all this bait out there for the traps. So what they did was FWP created a map, and they called it an occupied grizzly area. And they said, okay, well, you can start trapping outside this area. And then we'll monitor on the ground. If there's grizzlies, we're not going to open the wolf trapping. This was after that 2021 legislative session. They also allowed snaring, which posed a whole new threat, because you can put like 5 pounds of 200 snares in a 5 pound bucket. Wow. And they're cheap. only a couple dollars, right? So a lot cheaper and a lot easier to set hundreds of snares than 5 traps. So what happened from there is this last set, what am I trying to say? The wolf regulations, because trapping is inherently indiscriminate, grizzlies get caught. And so we documented this, okay? And then suits started coming in, like in Idaho. Grizzlies are getting trapped, and same thing with Idaho, year-round trapping on private land for wolves, posing threats to grizzlies, et cetera. Well, then in Montana, in the 2023 commission meeting, they shrunk the map. They made that map smaller, so more areas would start trapping wolves the first Monday after Thanksgiving. And they didn't disclose the map. I kept pushing them because it's open for public comment. And they said, well, per the attached map, there was no map because I think they wanted to sneak it by. And they went ahead, like they always do. They rubber stamp pretty much everything that goes through, the commission does. So I got a hold of some different groups and attorneys and said, look at this map. They've now increased the threat to grizzlies. And they pursued it. And they sued at the end of 2023, and very end of November, the judge said, okay, no more of this. Here are the new wolf trapping dates for Montana, January 1st to February 15th. And he did it across much of the state, which was tremendous. They still wound up killing more wolves in 2023, despite that. And yet trapping is so easy and successful that it used to be 45% of wolves that were killed were by trapping. In 2022, it jumped to 52% of the wolves killed in Montana were by traps and snares.
So why is that? Why is it so much more successful using this? I mean, in theory, the same tools, I guess.
Well, because it's so easy. So for starters, they can pre-bait. They pre-bait wolves, right? So they get them accustomed to an area. They can put food out, they can put scent out, they put a camera up. Wolves don't stay put. So they'll have like a summer rendezvous area. Well, they want them there in the fall to kill them. So they'll start pre-baiting and get them habituated that this is safe, this is our territory. And then they can set out numerous unlimited traps and snares. They're secreted, same bait, same food they know they like. Beaver is popular, horse meat is popular. And then they make use of what's known as the Judas wolf. So the wolf that gets caught, one, maybe two, because they're, unless it's a disperser, but they're watching, they want that whole pack. They don't want a one or two, right? Usually they want as many as they possibly can. They know where the packs are. They're given that information to begin with through the department. And that Judas wolf, they use that trapped wolf to capitalize on the fact of the loyalty of wolves. They will return. They're going to return to their pack members. It could be an alpha, it could be the alpha pair. It could be the pups of the year. Idaho just killed, probably not by trapping, but maybe they probably didn't need to, newborn puppies. That's all legal in these states. So then what happens, those wolves come in, they either get trapped or snared, or they can be gunned down. Their cameras are up monitoring all of this. And then to make it even easier, with a 48-hour trap check, it's all legal because they don't have to check that trap for 48 hours. So they can see it on their camera and not tell anybody, or maybe they don't even have a camera up, but they go, I'm going to go see what's happening in 48 hours. By then, the other pack members have been drawn in. In Idaho, it's 72 hours, all legal. They also can party trap. So that means they can put countless number of trapper tags on the trap. So if you're a really successful wolf trapper and you're getting your 10 quota in Montana, you can start trapping for others and call it their wolf. Say, hey, John, I got a wolf for you. You said you wanted a black one. I got a black one. So you claim your tag is on that trap. So theoretically, that one trap could be, for 5 people, for 50 shots at it for that one trap. That's what Governor Gianforte, when he illegally trapped that wolf, the word is there were 5 different trapper ID tags on that trap.
And so there's no regulation for the amount of tags that can go per trap. You can party tag, that is part of written in their, whatever it is, legislation or laws.
Right. They don't even say it. It's like it's a case of what they don't know. We're not going to even put it out there and say it's legal, but there's nothing to say it's illegal. So this is what they do. Same thing with pre-baiting. There's nothing to say they can't do that. They can pre-bait them across the Yellowstone national border to gun them down as soon as that season starts. There's nothing to say they can't. And in fact, the fact they can shoot them over bait, they probably can do it. They can certainly do it for trapping. And there's word that there's somebody feeding wolves, a rancher feeding wolves outside of Yellowstone to entice them in so that they can be gunned down. And then people can get a bounty. In Montana, they can collect $750 to $1,000 bounty. In Idaho, it's similar or more. And the Idaho-based group that pays for this or pays these bounties, they claim responsibility for killing 2,400 wolves in Idaho and Montana.
So how is it advantageous for the trappers for multiple trappers to be using the same trap? The quota is 10 per hunter. I guess I'm confused about what's the advantage of using the same trap.
So we have a population over 1 million people. The last count, Montana sold about 3,300 trapping licenses. Okay, so that's like 1/3 of 1%. But if you look at the stats, only about 60 trappers have been successful at getting a wolf. And there's some, they'll show one guy got 10 wolves, 2 guys got 5 wolves, the rest each got 1 wolf. So like I said, you want that wolf, hey, I'm good at it. I'll put your tag in there. So that's why more wolves can be killed by less people, really.
I see. So the success rate's generally low, but if more trappers are sort of relying on the instincts of those trappers that are more skilled and I guess therefore more successful, then in general, the success rates go up.
Right. They can also they call it gang trapping, where they flood an area and then they have snares along the pathway. There's no getting out for these wolves. They prefer the trapping than shooting, because once you shoot a wolf, there's blood, they're gone. They're gone. They require in Montana, it's interesting, trap wolves can only be killed by gunshot. But I don't know that anybody's checking that. And I highly doubt that's happening.
Because of the quality of the fur.
And they don't want that blood there because they want the wolves in.
So when you talk about pre-baiting, so there's evidence to, I guess, suggest that baiting alone is enough to influence their annual patterns or sort of change their rendezvous schedule, causing them to show up in an area earlier than they would have otherwise.
I think they probably do that, Stephen, because they know, and wolves are so territorial, and in the winter, the tracks, but it's really more the other way around. They want to keep those wolves there, not to draw them necessarily in, but it's to keep them there that would otherwise leave and get them used to it. Like if you look, so the wolf trapping is full blown now in Montana, effective January 1st. And sure enough, those numbers start going up fast on the numbers that are killed. For example, yesterday, it showed 139 wolves. Today, it's 148. And we're only talking, 5 days later.
So this sounds like it could be an area where there's generally a reliable source of ungulates, but those animals migrate out at a certain point, and the bait, it maybe keeps them there even then.
Yeah, and even if the ungulates didn't move out, I mean, their success rate is what? I think like 20%.
Less, yeah.
Versus it's kind of like livestock. It's like, yeah, if their natural ungulates are there, but boy, if livestock is just sitting there waiting in a sitting duck, so why risk getting your jaw kicked out by an when you've got meat hanging around for you and pups, right? The summer rendezvous has pups.
Right.
So they're conditioning those pups as well, and the parents and the whole cohesiveness. It's really so beyond unethical. And no other species, we don't manage mountain lions this way or black bears. Not that, they're not, I mean, what they're doing now with black bears after 100 years, they can, use dogs on black bears. That was banned for 100 years in Montana. And now they can use dogs on black bears. Fielder. It was just the whole Representative Paul Fielder. It's this whole war on large predators. It really is. And they haven't gone after mountain lions too much. Mountain lions are the number one victim of trapping, incidental trapping, in particular wolf traps. And they need their paws. Most of them, the far majority, are injured or dead from trapping.
Can you bait wolves as a rifle hunter?
You could shoot them over bait. So yeah. Yeah. And you can shoot them at night on private land, and you can use, vision scopes, and you can kill wolves and leave them to rot. So the total quota is 20, just an FYI, 10 by shooting and 10 by trapping.
So one person could theoretically have a rifle tag and a trapping tag, and that gives them the option for 20. 20.
Yeah. 20.
20,
yeah.
It's 10 and 10.
And a trapping license is $28. And with a trapping license, you can trap, several dozen species. Well, a couple dozen species. No, you don't need a trapping license. So I correct myself for a couple dozen species, but you can trap about a dozen, one $28 purchase from a Montana resident. You can trap 10 wolves. You can trap bobcat, river otter, fisher,
Are there other seasons for wolf hunting, like the other seasons you'd have for elk, bow hunting, muzzleloader hunting, those types of things?
Well, the season runs 6 months now, which is very disturbing too. There's a couple of weeks for bow and arrow in September, and then the general hunting season starts September 15th, ends March 15th. But now you've got later stage pregnant wolves. And I can't tell you how many legislative sessions and commission meetings I've attended, and they've said, we've got to do something about the overpopulated elk. We have too many elk. The management objective is 90,000. We had I think 95,000 when wolves were introduced into Yellowstone. We went as high as 172,000 elk. We're now sitting at around, last count estimate was 134,000 elk. So they would say, we got to reduce those elk. We have a 6-month-long elk season. When you ask how long, because we have a shoulder season, and 6 months. That's how long our elk season is in Montana with the shoulder season. Yeah. And hunters are objecting to that because they've got elk that's got fully developed fawns or calves, I guess, with calves. And they're like, this is just obscene. What are we doing? But livestock producers complain, the elk are eating my hay, get rid of them. They're mandated again through the legislative session, reduce elk. But every one of those bills or proposals, whether it's commission or legislature, has been preceded or followed by, what are we going to do about those damn wolves? We've got to reduce the wolf population. So you've got 134,000 elk estimate for anywhere between 850 and 1,100 wolves. And they go together, right? The wolves keep the elk strong. And vice versa. The prey determine how many predators there's going to be. But
yeah, this is one of those really interesting themes or threads throughout it's like one of the classic arguments between groups about elk or deer. And I mean, it's in a lot of the states in the West. There are multiple parties saying ungulate herds are decimated for sure. and then there are multiple parties saying there's actually too many. And it's another one of those things that just, in this day and age, it's a very familiar sort of problem, is that there doesn't seem to be an objective reality that we can all get on the same page about. And worth mentioning, I don't think anyone's even lying. I think there's really confusion about what's
They believe
real.
it. Oh, wholeheartedly. They also believe they reintroduced the wrong wolf, and that we got 200-pound wolves out there that are going to eat, your kids at the school bus when they're done with all the elk and your pets. And I mean, it even comes up in the legislative session where legislators said that last session, something about a 200-pound wolf. And I don't know if she was scared. It's like, this is embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for you, these statements, but it's a generational mindset. They'll say, there's a reason Grandpappy wiped out the wolf before.
Yeah, I've been seeing that a lot.
Dead wolf, all those things. So a couple of things that do play in. Yeah, it's harder probably to hunt elk now. So people that were like, I could always go out there and get my elk, is what they like to say. Now it's not so easy. But any hunter I know, I've never heard them say they couldn't get an elk that year. It's also not a guarantee. That's what the challenge is, right?
Right. And
Right,
that's
yeah,
that's
hunting.
the saying, is it's called hunting, not
Right,
shooting.
hunting. On the other hand, wolves are very shy. They're afraid of people. So I would guess they're more likely to avoid, a ranch where there's a lot of activity going on, and hopefully they have some non-lethal things out there too, where the elk go, hey, I'm going there. I'm getting away. The wolves want to hide in the woods, and they're very timid and shy. So I think it's a combination of factors. But in the end, what the estimates show, what the aerial counts show, all three states, Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming, are over management objective for elk. And also the harvest rate is really high in all three states. So even if they say they're decimating them, well, then how come hunters are doing so well killing them?
Yeah, because we've seen that too. To Stephen's point, there is this. I hate to use the word disconnect, but it really does seem as though there's this. It's like we're running parallel universes here, where every person or most of the people we speak to your point, Casey, who are hunters, say, I have no problem finding an elk for me and my family, or 2 elk for me and my family. Yet every number that we see over objective by tens of thousands, not by like a few hundred. And the population of predators that I've noticed on social media and in news outlets that are getting culled, whether it be, we're not just talking wolves, coyotes, they're talking about hunting wolverines now. So you're decimating these predator populations too. And so the imbalance is, again, man affected. In other words, it's just not letting it be natural. I mean, because a lot of this, I know we probably spoke about a few years ago, but it's a great refresher for everybody who's listening.
Sorry, John, just before you move on.
Go ahead.
I think it's worth mentioning that the size of the animals that we have here in the lower 48 versus those in Canada is the information's readily available with your local biologist. I think it's worth encouraging everybody, if this is a theory of sort of the super wolf or this massive subspecies of wolf, if this resonates with you to any degree, and even if it doesn't, I encourage anyone who's curious about this topic to just get in touch with a local biologist and ask them, when you collar wolves, what kind of weights are you getting on these animals? Are they bigger than the average wolf? So far, we have not heard there's evidence of that from local biologists, but the information is available.
Yeah, exactly. In the areas they found, like you were talking about, John, where the elk population is under management objective, it's not a huge drop, and they found severe winters and habitat loss.
Right, habitat.
Really, the key. In fact, the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks used to show up. They would have an informational witness for all these legislative bills that, so they could be objective and just provide the facts. And I remember Chief of Wildlife back in 2021, he came out and said the wolves are not the cause of the lower elk population up in certain units in Region 1, Northwest Montana. We never saw him again. He was never back in the legislative session. It's like, don't confuse the politics with the science. Do
Right.
not mess with this agenda to get wolves, and it's mandated through the legislative session to get wolves down to the bare minimum, but avoid listing. This session that just started, they already have bills to year-round kill wolves, remove quotas, unlimited killing of wolves, get trapper apprentice, they're already in the works. And yeah, we also have an increase in chronic wasting disease and spreading. Which is nature's way. When a population is over objective, nature's going to take care of it, and you're going to get disease set in. It's like plague and prairie dogs. It's indigenous to the population. It helps them stay in control. So I've advocated, don't be killing wolves where chronic wasting disease is detected. Even if it's a sunset clause, let them do their job. They can pick up on it way before anybody else can. I mean, they provide the hunter with the healthy because they take out the weaker, and they don't do it without risk, severe risk to themselves. But I'm preaching to the choir.
And I'm curious if, and I have a hunch that maybe the spread of disease is not simply an indicator of overpopulation, but it seems logical that it could be an indicator that prey is not being moved around enough. Similar to human sickness, maybe, if folks are in close quarters eating from the same kitchen and they stay there for a long time, likely everyone's getting sick. If they pass in and out quickly, spending less time in close quarters, then you reduce the spread. And it seems to be that this is one of the utilities of having instinctual wild predators on the landscape, is that they aren't just reducers of primarily weak individuals from populations, but they are forceful movers of herds. And a pack does that better than an individual hunter. And that maybe to human hunters looks like one thing, but in the long run, it's in theory, it could be good for the ecosystem to just keep grazers moving.
That's a great point. That's a great point. They talked about it in Yellowstone, and even, that they were like cattle.
Right.
The elk were like cattle. They're just, out there sitting ducks. And I had heard, in fact, I think it was Dr. Doug Smith spoke about, he had a ranch hand out there when they were trying to collar, I think, some elk. And he said, holy cow, they are tough. I've wrangled a lot of cattle and stuff, but those elk in Yellowstone really became some tough, feisty animals.
Yeah, and it speaks to what your specificity and your speciality too, Casey, of knowing about all these trapping laws and understanding the impacts of this, because when you talk about other animals that are typically caught in snares and traps, outside of wolves, granted, wolves do get caught in snares and traps, you're just setting out all of this stuff and taking out a lot of the predator base. And I know there's no, as far as I remember, there's nothing in these documents or in this legislation or in these regulations that it's illegal or it's not worried about. It's like, okay, if you catch coyotes or foxes or lynx or whatever, or bobcats mostly, it doesn't really matter because it's just take off the land. Am I right on that? There's no...
You bring up a great point. For one, those after wolves, wolf traps and snares are the number one culprit now for incidental trappings. They're the number one target for all these incidental trappings. And those, like I mentioned, the mountain lions, I'd say an average of about 40 mountain lions get reported caught a year, okay? And it's up to the trapper to decide if they're even alive, if they're injured or not, but most of them are reported injured. Again, you're stuck in a trap 48 hours. It's not going to be pretty, especially in the wintertime. Frostbite sets in, they say after 24, your chances of survival are slim to none. Even if they're released, the likelihood is very strong they're going to succumb afterwards. And the ones even known dead, they don't come off the mountain lion quota the next year. Neither does if you catch a fisher, or now we finally got wolverine listed under the ESA as threatened, but they're talking about allowing incidental take, condoning trapping of wolverine.
Yeah, because Wolverine's at what? I think 300 total.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
that's what they're estimating.
That is a fraction, and they cover a massive amount of territory. A single animal. I think they cover what, up to like 100 square miles or something like that. I could be wrong.
I mean, you got to remember, Wolverine's like 35 pounds.
Right.
And they don't hibernate, and they need the snow melt, and they're scavengers, really. They feed off those dying. They can chase a grizzly off. They have to be tenacious. They have to be. They're 35 pounds. That's why they have that reputation. But they're also known as trap junkies. And the trappers used to call them skunk bears because they, I guess, smell bad, and they would rob their trap line. They hate them. But that was, again, here's food. Yay. So yeah, we're probably, they have to just make their decision. I think it's this month if they're going to go ahead and allow the incidental take. But the collateral damage is huge from trapping, huge. I mean, estimate of millions, couple million animals a year are trapped in this country. And those are just the ones that they know of, not the orphans and the incidental take. It's, that's the other reasons it's so successful. You're going to go out there and watch to shoot a wolf. Why Yellowstone wolves are so easy to shoot, because the same scope people are watching them with, others are waiting to shoot them as they cross that line, right? Trapping, you don't even have to be there. You can't, there used to be a thing called set guns, and they were called fur getters. And you could set up a gun and a wire. So when the animal came along, it would shoot them. You didn't have to be there, and that was illegal. But to me, trapping isn't much different, and snares. You can just set them and go. We have no trap check other than 48 hours for wolves and for bobcat sets and lynx protection zones. So you can, there's a warden once told me there was a guy who can't speak, checks his trap line once a month from one end to the other. Once a month, because they can run for miles. In Canada, you have to register your trap line, which I think is a great idea, because then the wardens can at least, but we have Montana and Alaska, and I want to say one of the Dakotas, I don't remember. There's only 3 states that don't have a trap check. And that's one of the bills that's coming up in this 25 legislative session, which I'm pretty excited about. I wrote the language for daily trap checks in the 2019 legislative session. And I've reached out to him and said, hey, I wrote it based on what other states did, what the concerns and the opposition was, and hopefully we can get it through, because that would at least end a lot of suffering, save some of these incidental captures if they abide by the law.
Because if we talk about this too, it's not just, even with the daily trap check, right? And because I believe the last time we spoke too, and obviously it bears repeating, that we're talking also in a state where there's a lot of outdoor recreation. So, and you've put on your website, and I'm sure we spoke about this before, but it, again, bears repeating that I don't believe there's any law or regulation with how far you can set them off of a trail or set them off of a road or something like that, right, Casey?
Actually, we do have that.
There is that. Okay.
Yeah, there is that. It's insufficient. I mean, it's 50 foot off of the edge of a road for traps or a trail. That's nothing for a dog. Even under voice command, 50 foot off of a public road. It's 150 foot for wolf trap sets, and then it's different for trailheads and campgrounds and things like that. However, with the shortening of the wolf trapping in much of the state, that case was appealed, so it's not as great as it was, but it's still a significant portion of the state. The wolf trapping is from January 1st, as I said, to February 15th. Commissioner Burrows, Fish and Wildlife Commissioner Burrows, said he felt really bad that the wolf trapping was shortened. And he had met with that bounty hunting Idaho-based group. He didn't meet with any of the outdoor recreationists or talk to them. But he said he's removing all the setbacks off the closed public roads, the roads that are closed to motorized vehicles year-round and seasonally, other than snowmobiles. Well, they like snowmobiles, the trappers, because they can haul in their bait, they can, access the areas so much easier, they can haul out their indiscriminate victims. And wolves, like anything, use those roads because there's path of least resistance, like any of us use. However, hundreds of people, it's in my county, Ravalli County is where he did it. We've got the Bitterroot National Forest. Hundreds of people recreate out there. They go out with their dogs, they go out with their kids. These are Kelly humped roads. There's no traffic on it. Get the kids out, go cross-country skiing, running. There's people that go daily. And these traps, monstrous 9-inch jaw wolf traps, can be secreted, strangling snares and body crushing conibears directly on these closed roads now.
So,
and a former
on the road, you mean?
Directly on those closed roads that people use. No signage, no posting. And unless you're like me or other wildlife advocates, most of the population don't know. They might love nature and getting out, but they're not checking FWP and going, oh, they removed setbacks on these roads I've used forever. They don't know. And it's maddening that this can happen. A former wildlife commissioner told me, you're talking an estimated 900 miles of closed roads in the Bitterroot National Forest. And a number of them are coveted and popular. And it's just a horrible accident waiting to happen. A child could run through a snare. Kids are very curious. They could reach in a cubby, and say, what is that? A cubby, so it's got the branches all over, and it could be a body crushing conibear on the other side. One year, one Christmas time, we had a prominent family, to this day, I don't know who they are, and they were out Christmas tree hunting. I don't know if I had told this story before. And kids, being kids, they spotted something and they went running, and then the lab got there first. And it was a leg hold trap under a feather that was dangling. The feather would have been a lure for bobcat. And these kids, this is Christmas, tree hunting. What a memory. Nobody ever forgets this. And how do you explain to a child, somebody likes doing this? They like killing these animals, and it's your dog. So what? We pay, the trappers don't pay anything. They get mad. We had a testimony last session. The trapper said, you know what it's like to come across a German Shepherd in a trap? And he said, that was pretty scary. And damn it, he robbed me of a bobcat. I could have caught a bobcat in that trap set. He was mad. And he said, I let the dog go. There wasn't a house for miles. He didn't take the dog to the shelter. He didn't look for a collar or a dog tag to call the owner. He just let this poor dog go. And how long it was trapped? Could have been trapped for a long time because there's no requirement.
And this particular trapper, if you know, is I guess a hobbyist or a professional.
Well, he probably does both. He's on actually the Montana Trappers Association board. He might even be an instructor for all we know for the mandatory trapper education we now have, which is another joke. The price of furs has gone way down. Bobcat, at a time, bobcat could go for $1,000, $2,000. Now maybe $350. There might be one with a well-spotted belly that they'll get $650 for.
And I can't remember what you said last time, but who are the usual buyers?
They go, there's auctions. They'll have different auctions they go to. And then they collect the wolf bounty, and then they can export wolf pelts as well. So you can get $750 to $1,000 for a wolf, even if you don't sell the fur or any of the body parts.
So the traps aren't marked, but is there a, similar to how you'll hit a trailhead and it'll say, bear activity in the area or something like that?
No, and there is a bill. It's been tried before, and the trappers kill it every time. I mean, they don't want anything to protect public safety. They don't want anything to infringe on their fun, their recreation, it's too much trouble.
That one does seem like an easy one because I don't see how it could necessarily hurt their success or the activity itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it makes me think of rifle hunting. We wear orange so that we can make hikers or families in the area make it known that we're hunting, and it's a safety measure and it keeps everybody safe. And I think in some way, keeping everybody safe sort of preserves the tradition as well. So it's advantageous for everybody to do it.
They're afraid. They say, well, one of the last sessions, there was something to at least flag snares. I mean, leg hold traps are going to hurt. And if it's a wolf trap, I'm not heavy enough to open one. I mean, you have to, so good luck with that. This woman whose dog we just helped, she carried the dog. And she didn't carry the dog because the dog was too big. It was a pit bull, real sweetheart, has her own Facebook page or Instagram or something, this dog. But she had to go get help. And that wasn't in a wolf trap set, but she still had to go get help. She could not get the trap open. It really had it was coiled pretty tight, I guess. But so there was a thing snares are the silent killer. And hunting dogs, when they say, put your dog on a leash, well, you're not going to put your hunting dog on a leash.
Right. That's counterproductive to the idea.
Right. So your dog's running and you don't know that it was snared. So there was a bill can the snares be flagged at least? Nope.
Sure. Yeah.
Nope. They didn't go for it. They won't go for it.
Flagged, I see they're not into because it's a moving object, but I feel like some kind of adhesive to a tree that's not, that just comes on and off or something. Yeah. I don't see how that could be an issue to the trapper. And I think, it seems like it would save at least somebody at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you'd have to, like I said, it's almost like it's just a blanket statement. Anything that somebody wants that might change and in some way they vote against it. And that's where it's so important too. When people say, I keep trying, and we dominate in the commission, we dominate in the legislative session, either supporting the good bills or opposing the bad ones. I mean, tremendously. And we make very little headway. So people say, why? They don't listen to us, but that's what they want. They want us to stop. And they need to know we're not, and then we're watching. And the people calling legislators, most of them vote party line, almost across the board. However, last session, we had a supermajority. The Republicans carried a supermajority, and opposing trapping is bipartisan. But people took our heed, and they still called, and they got a few Republicans to flip. And we killed a major bill. We killed a bill that would have made trapping a right, and killing all the unethical means to manage wildlife right now, whether it's snaring or, whatever, and all kinds of things. Snaring, they would have been the preferred means to manage wildlife had that bill passed.
You have any sense of what flipped those folks?
Talking to them, they, in fact, I sent out a thank you and I said, wow, whoever made the call, we got this. We got a legislator to flip. And then I started hearing from several people. Well, I call this person. I thought it was one. It was a handful of people that called and said, I am your constituent. This is going too far. We should have been managing wildlife on respect and ethics and be good stewards and habitat, protecting habitat and biodiversity. Not the preferred means to manage wildlife is to kill them and protect all current barbarian means. So that's my point in this legislative session. You have a voice, use it.
Right, and safe access to the public should be maximally important.
Yeah.
It should be.
Absolutely.
And that's what I remember you driving home always really about this, because I remember when we were at not the symposium, the Yellowstone Wolf
Summit
there,
yeah,
and just showing how powerful these traps are that you and Carter Niemeyer were up there showing. That is I mean, it really is a danger to anybody who's out there. If you don't know, if you don't have the legitimate strength to be able to save, as you said, your pet or your child, honestly, I mean, that is something that needs to be out there. Also, along with that, is if there are constituents calling their legislators, and we probably talked about this years ago and probably talked about this with you in person, but the shift from trapping, fur trading, all of this stuff that used to be popular, go back 100, I'll say 100 years, but probably not even then, maybe even a little less than that, to now when we have adventure guiding and tourism and photography and things like that, it's sort of flipped the income of a lot of these states on its head. But it seems as though legislative bodies are slow to catch up to that point. So do they still feel that the money that is being brought in by these things? Because when we spoke to John Marriott up in Canada, same thing. They did a whole documentary series on this of how the trap, it's extremely good. Anybody who hasn't watched it, please go do so on his YouTube page. The prices, they're in the basement. I mean, you cannot legitimately make a living on this, or it was used for trade back in long time ago. Like we're, not at a point where we're trading stuff. So why are folks in the legislative bodies not listening to their constituents then? Because they're able to flip on certain bills, but they can't see the dollars flipping and also the safety of their people as these populations tend to grow in these states.
I can't help but wonder it's because they're not the ones making the money from the tourism. It's the ones that are driving this bus to trap and kill all these wolves. They're special interests. They're outfitters. They're collecting money off getting wolves killed and getting the elk. And I mean, the amount of money involved. And then some livestock producers are behind it as well. They don't want it, it's not easy. My stepfather was a rancher and they had hundreds of acres. That's a lifestyle. Trapping isn't a lifestyle. That's a lifestyle. It's not easy. And they don't want to have to, some of them don't want to have to deal with the predators. Get rid of them. I don't know. It's hard for me because I'm so removed from how this could be justified. There's so many wrongs with trapping. But they're empowered. And I mean, even Governor Gianforte, he gave $10,000 a few years ago to the Montana Trappers Association. He didn't trap Max. Max was trapped for him, the Yellowstone wolf. He wasn't even charged. He was given a slap on the hand for not doing the wolf trapping certification class, which had been in existence for like a decade. I even had done it. So we're really in a bad space right now. People aren't making a living, as you said, off of this. They have full-time jobs. They found out that any profit is pretty much not a point when they did surveys. It's not a point. They say the number one reason they trap is for fun. That is their number one reason. They have full-time jobs, so they don't want to have to check their trap every day. It's a hobby. It's recreation. And as far as those that shoot a wolf, what I've been told is if they're out there in their usual hunting district and they don't see an elk, they'll let the first wolf go. But the second wolf, they'll go, well, you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe they're getting those elk. I'm going to do my duty, my due diligence, and kill this poor wolf who's out, probably not even looking for an elk, especially if it's by itself. It's not generally. I mean, it takes a pack. But it's just a very different mindset. We have some of our new billboards up. One of them has a snowmobiler, or a guy in a snowmobile, not a snowmobiler, but a guy in a snowmobile chasing a coyote. And we put that up for two reasons. It's legal in Montana to run over predators with motorized vehicles, including snowmobiles. It happens. And we wanted to increase public awareness, especially after what happened in Wyoming with that poor tortured wolf that was run down and duct taped its snout and taken home for photo ops and then the guy gathered his friends and family in the Green River bar to parade the wolf further while the wolf was dying, dragged it in, kissed it as it bared its teeth, and God only knows how that torture ended, because shooting it would have been illegal. You can't discharge a firearm outside a bar in a city. So who knows what he did to that poor animal. And so Wyoming is working on trying to make that illegal there. We're trying to get it illegal in Montana. They can't do it to wolves, but we know they are. Shouldn't be done to any animal. So that's why we put that billboard up, to get people to vote for wildlife, make them a priority. People live in Montana because we have every species in the contiguous US is in Montana. We're the only state with that. We're an enormous state with just, I think 1,800,000 people. All the public lands, we've got to respect and care about these wildlife. And it's never an issue when it comes to voting, or they wouldn't vote the way they are. So we put it up for that and to increase public awareness about them running over predators with snowmobiles. Senator Mike Phillips tried to make it illegal in 2019. I testified in support. There were less than a dozen of us that did, and the bill was quickly tabled. Representative Paul Fielder's wife, Jennifer Fielder, was the chair of the committee. And the committee would have been Fish and Game. And she said, "You ever see what a coyote does to a calf?" It's like, well, I hope they don't use a snowmobile. You can still kill coyotes.
Yeah. That's one of those sort of perspectives or, talking points that we could really do without, is this sort of judgment of wild predators about how they hunt.
Yeah. Like they have this moral compass to say, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't go for an easy meal. And feed my family, right?
We could do without that whole thing.
But it's interesting with this billboard. I got a call the night before Thanksgiving about the billboard with the guy in the snowmobile going after the coyote. And this woman said, "I'm a snowmobiler and I don't like it. We don't do that." And I said, "Well, I'm glad." But some do. Well, who do? And it went back and forth, and she got more irate, wanted me to take the billboard down. And I said, "Well, I'm sorry you're offended by this. It's not about snowmobiling." She said, "Well, we're under the bus and we're getting attacked." And I'm like, "That's not what this is about. So join us. Come out and say, this does not represent snowmobiling." And the conversation ended. She called back 2 or 3 times, and every message she got more aggressive. In the end, she said, "I used to oppose trapping, but we're going to lobby against anything you put forward, and we're going to vote against anything that you want." And then the last call was, "You don't take that billboard down. I'm contacting the Snowmobiler Association, and we're going to sue." So then I don't know what it is with the holidays. Over the Christmas holidays, we get a letter in the mail. This guy signed it. He's got his street address and his city. And he starts out saying, they don't do that anymore. Coyotes they used to, but coyotes aren't worth much. Well, he's wrong, because coyotes are kind of lucrative in a down market. But he said, they don't do it anymore. But he says, "You know what? I'm a snowmobiler. I don't like this." Similar message. I'm gonna vote against, I'm gonna take opposition to every single thing you guys represent till you get that billboard down. He says, "As a matter of fact, I'm gonna go buy a trapping license, and I'm gonna trap me some fine piece of fur, and I'm gonna skin it, and I'm gonna mail it to you, and see if that doesn't influence you." It's like the holidays, a time of giving and caring and, generosity and friendship, right? Camaraderie, love. This brings out the crazies and the people that are hate. And then we have to take it serious. I started and managed the Facebook page years ago when we posted Josh Bransford and that trapped wolf in Idaho standing in the bloodied snow that kids had taken pot shots of. And he was told, you got an assembly forming around there. You're drawing in a crowd. Go take care of it. He worked for the Forest Service. And when he got there, he stopped to take a picture smiling in front of that bloodied wolf. And we posted it on Facebook, and it went global. And we got a death threat saying, I'm going to come and kill your kids and make you watch. And I was the one managing the page, and I was the one with the kids. So I've had other threats. I've had trappers come after me. Can't, even though some of these people are just, have some mental issues, there's the one we just got to watch our back. You got to watch your back. And it was interesting because that same year afterwards, I did the wolf trapping certification class, and they said, whatever you do, don't post pictures. They said, look at what happened with that picture with Josh Bransford and that trapped wolf. They said it could have been the end of all could have ended wolf trapping, could have been the end of all trapping, heaven forbid. But they can't help themselves. They like to post and boast. And
yeah, I think a lot of folks, particularly in the outdoor community, are they seem to be coming to terms with the fact that oversharing this stuff is eventually going to have a negative impact on the hunting tradition. And I'm curious, in the near future, sort of looking back, sort of the analysis on what kind of effect social media had on these types of things, just because people post everything.
And these are just the ones we know about. In Wyoming, they said, hey, that's a family recreation. Right. Take their kids and do stuff like that. And then when we post the pictures, they say they're photoshopped. Like we still, when we started our billboard campaign, which is statewide, we have anywhere from half a dozen to a dozen billboards up at a time, all different kinds of designs. And our first billboard is that one of the trapped and dying wolf. And that went all over the state. And that was actually taken by a photographer. He didn't have his equipment with him because it was a weekend and he wasn't working, and he granted us permission to use it. Adipose tissue oozing, fatty tissue from the paw of that trapped animal. But they're worth a picture's worth 1,000 words, in other words. And that's when I first started, people didn't know trapping was still going on. And I thought, not under my watch. You're going to know and you're going to see it. And those billboards have been really instrumental. It's our 7th year now with our billboards around the state. So, but one thing I wanted to add, because I know we're running out of time, with the litigation this month, towards the end of January, they have to make a decision if they're going to delist grizzlies or not. And if they do, a lot of this, the protection we got, the shortened seasons, the limited areas in Idaho that they could trap, and the shortened season in those areas to protect grizzlies, they go away.
And this is just for this is for the state of Montana, or are we talking about federally delisting?
Well, they're looking at U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. My understanding is Idaho and Wyoming and Montana have petitioned to delist the grizzly. There's probably stuff going on federally as well. This wouldn't affect Alaska, but in those 3 states and in only certain areas too. But I just don't see how they can. We just won our case against Wildlife Services because there were 3 plaintiffs. We were again represented by Western Environmental Law Center, but it's a black hole. Don't know what happens to these grizzlies with Wildlife Services. And so we won that case. They have to do a study and show what is happening to them.
Yeah. Are they looking at a number? It seems as though people are so fixated on numbers. Same with wolves. They want to get them down to the original, whatever it was, 150.
Right.
Is it the same with grizzlies? They want to get it to...
They're saying they're well recovered because they're well over some number from long ago, whether it was 200 and now there's 1,000. I don't know. But the point is, with grizzlies, they need connectivity. They can't exist on islands.
Right.
And they're so slow reproducing. I mean, wolves can take, I'm not condoning this because I don't think wolves should be killed for being wolves, but grizzly can't take it. They're so slow producing, the genetics, they just can't take what's in store for them. And the way Idaho and Wyoming and Montana manage wolves gives you a good idea what they would do to grizzlies. A really good idea.
So going forward, what's the best way? Obviously, trapfreemontana.com, correct? .org?
.org.
.org. What are other
Trapfreemt.org. Sorry.
trapfreemt.org? What are other things, other places that people can stay up to date on this? Because this is obviously a refresher course for Stephen and I from a few years ago. But for maybe those who are listening for the first time, what are the things to look out for? And where can they find out the updates and what bills are being floated so they can stay up to date on this stuff?
Well, I think the best way would be to go to that website, trapfreemt.org, and on there has a lot of questions and answers and information, everything from the truths in trapping, which has been hidden and secreted for a long time, to how to release your pet, what to look for, when you're out there, because it's very hard to spot traps and snares. So what should you be aware of? There's a list of contacts, how to contact the commission, how to find your legislator. And most importantly, I think to help would be to sign up for our newsletter. It's an e-news. We don't exchange or sell or trade or anything, people's information. But we'll keep you up to speed when things are happening and what you can do about them. And we'll even help with comments for people to submit. And we're big on help any way you can. A woman called yesterday and said, I can't do anything, but I can donate. I said, everything helps. Writing letters to the editor, telling your friends, sharing our posts. We're quite active, definitely on Facebook, a little on Twitter and Instagram, but sharing our posts, getting the word out there to people beyond those that already support us and know this stuff.
Right. I think the one thing I'm just checking over before we let you go, the quotas for wolves, they're already over quota, I believe, correct, in certain zones, and there's 60 plus days to go. Let us know, or the people who are listening, about that as well.
Okay. Well, the only place that we have it, they have I don't know if they even call it a quota. They might, that doesn't necessarily stop them. Like Region 3, which is outside Yellowstone, Bozeman area, they're approaching their quota. I haven't checked for a while, but I think the number they say are 50. They're at 40. They used to, when they got within that, they would have a meeting to discuss what are we going to do. But then they never did anything. And we'd all rally up to give comment and they'd say, we're not doing anything. So they wouldn't even take public comment. So they don't even do that anymore. But what's really disheartening is what happened when they removed the quotas outside Yellowstone National Park in 2021. At least 21 wolves were slaughtered. And these wolves are pretty naive. They're used to people. So it was pretty easy. A whole pack was wiped out. It was just horrendous, because before there was a quota of like 1-2 wolves. Now there was none, 21 wolves. I can't remember the percentage of the wolves that were destroyed, but it was significant. So Yellowstone National Park got involved and advocated we really need a quota. It's hurting businesses, tours, everything were canceled, right? People were so fed up. Boycott Montana. Tourism is our second leading industry, so it's pretty huge. So with the help, strong advocacy of Yellowstone National Park, we got a quota back. This year, Cam Shawley, the superintendent, said, hey, we need more help. Wolves were hit hard. We had a really rough winter. We'd like you to split the 2 units outside the park again. 313 and 316 had been combined. They're units adjacent to the park. He said, I'd like you to divide them. The quota was 6 wolves, do 3 and 3. We advocated 2 and 2. The law does not permit them not to have any, people say, why kill any? They can't do that legally yet, but they can reduce that quota. So this session, only 5 weeks into the 6-month-long season, on October 24th, 4 wolves were gunned down out of a quota of 3, all in the same day, all at the same time, right outside Yellowstone in Unit 313, which apparently you can just sit there and shoot. It's so easy. So I don't know how many shooters there were. And then they give a time period. I want to say it's 24 or 48 hours to close it. Heaven forbid they close it immediately. It's like pending closure. We got to give notice. And about a week later, they discovered a fifth wolf that was shot at that time too. And they only discovered it because that poor wolf had been shot and went and cowered under some brush, but it had a collar. So they tracked it and found it, said it was a fifth wolf. They didn't count it. Why? It was a wolf. It was alive. It's not a number. And even then, it wasn't even a number. And yet we have, like I said, you can kill wolves in Montana and leave them. You just have to report them. So this wolf was shot. They know it was shot and died slowly from those injuries about a week later. Meantime, in Unit 316, one wolf was killed. They have a quota of 3. So we're arguing, you hit your 6. You maybe hit more. Close them. Unit 316 is a hard one to kill wolves in. So one wolf has been reported. We're watching from like 6 days ago. They're not providing the information on a colored wolf in the area. For all we know was, why it's taking so long to provide that information is not surprising, but it's discouraging too. Just like the changes in the wolf regs, they didn't post them. A month later, after they made the decision, they never put them up on the website. So how do you enforce regs that you don't publicize? And I kept trying. And I finally went to their overhead, Environmental Quality Council. They're up now, and I think that's why. Hopefully, they said, this isn't kosher. You can't do this. How do we enforce laws? And what does this say about us, that we make up stuff, but we don't tell anybody about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Casey York, thank you for giving us all the lowdown of everything that's happening and your continued efforts with information and getting this stuff out to the public so that people are aware, mostly I think, of their rights, and so that people understand if these things are affecting their areas, what they can do to help and to get involved. And that's a huge deal, so that people have the information so they can guide their decisions. So thank you for your continued work as always, and for giving us the information. It's always great to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you both so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Stick around while we sign off. How's to you all out there. We'll be with you next time. Bye, everybody. Looking for more information about Wolf Connection or the podcast? Please visit our website at wolfconnection.org, where you can donate, sponsor a wolf, or become a volunteer.